Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. Joining me today is Lou.
Hello, everyone.
Karen.
Hello.
And I am Jesse. We are discussing And the Sky Full of Stars, and I am very excited to hear what my co-hosts think about this one. So without any further delay, Karen, give me some quick thoughts.
I'm very mixed on this episode.
Oh, okay.
I have to say, it's not as good as some of the last few that we've watched.
Okay.
That's just, again, my opinion.
Sure.
But we got a lot of good character development. So I'm not quite sure where it goes. I mean, as we talk about things, I think my grade is going to firm up, and it's not just because of your influence, but you might like bring up stuff that makes me feel different about it, and like makes me look differently at the episode. So,
and Lou, how about you?
I'm in the same boat. I think what maybe Karen's alluding to is that from a series mythology and character perspective, it's a very important episode, obviously, but the execution wasn't quite there. And this comes back for me to the lead actor. Sorry, I can't remember his name, but whoever plays Sinclair.
Yeah, Michael
O'Hare. He has a certain range of acting, and this episode called for things that was outside his range of acting. And so because of that, moments that should have seemed very emotionally fraught or deep, he wasn't able to pull that off. So I didn't feel the emotions that I thought I was supposed to be feeling for this, what the character was going through. So that's where I'm sitting at with this one. And it's a fairly straightforward one thread episode. So there's not a lot of depth to it either. So I'm curious, Jesse, at what you thought of it or think of it.
Yeah. So because I know where we're going, and I know that how significant of a signpost this is, now we're getting to the meat of the journey.
Right.
But listening to both of you describe that, and then I changed that hat, you're right. There's not a significant B story. There's just, hey, our hero gets captured. He gets interrogated. The rest of the station tries to find him. He's rescued. Story ended, right?
Yep.
And especially considering the past 2 or 3 episodes have had a lot of great stories and a lot of depths, I can actually absolutely see that. This episode was written by J. Michael Straczynski. He was especially proud of the directions of this, the way that a lot of different angles and some fun things. Janet Greek was the director. She's done a lot of different stuff. She did multiple episodes of Babylon 5. She did the video Ricky by Weird Al Yankovic.
Ricky, you're so fine.
Yeah, she's done multiple episodes of Railroad Place, St. Elsewhere. So she has been around for a long time. So as I said, there's not a lot of story to get around, but let's start out with the security guard has got his butt in trouble. He has waged too much money. He's in debt. There's the local loan sharks wanting his money. Any thoughts about that? And because that's set up him allowing people to bring in equipment that shouldn't go to the station.
Well, I wanted him to start dancing.
Okay.
He was one of the dancers in Footloose.
Did not know that. Oh, nice.
So I was like, oh, that's that guy from Footloose. I've seen Footloose a few times.
Okay.
So
the old one or the new one?
The old one, the one with Kevin Bacon.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought that set up the storyline fairly well. It was like, well, how could this happen? How could they take him hostage and all that? And it shows that you can't just bring stuff on board the ship. Right. That you have to have some kind of connection within the ship. And it made everything vulnerable for him to have all these gambling debts. So I like that it brings in a lot of elements from, like, we know they have gambling on the ship, that was already established. And how can someone actually take advantage of that? Are there guidelines in place? And we got some answers from that, which is cool. I mean, not that they were in my head to begin with, but I was like, oh, okay, well, that's good that they have limits and all that. So it was nice with that setup, and also that we got to see behind the scenes of the leadership of the ship, of the space station.
Yeah. Lou, any thoughts?
Well, he was a character.
Yeah.
He was just, as we mentioned off the top, this is a pretty straightforward episode. So he was purely a plot device. So he didn't really register for me in any particular way or form. His storyline was pretty paint by numbers. He got a gambling problem, blah, blah, blah. He's in hook with the underworld elements of the Babylon 5 space station. So he was okay. He had the 80s hairdo going. So it was kind of like, yeah, whatever.
You know, what I found interesting is there was not a lot of subtlety, right? Like there's Garibaldi, the commander, by having a lot of debt, you could be influenced to do wild things. Who, me? Influenced never. Cut to being influenced to do bad things, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Judson Scott, who played Night One, man, he
was ageless. Wrath of Khan. He's in Khan.
Yes, and he, like, you have the superior mind. That head of hair is just beautiful.
Yeah.
He has been in a ton of stuff, but it is funny that he was in the Colbys, but it does feel like very much like an 80s or 90s hairdo. Like, not a timeless, just very much that.
But he pulls it off.
He does.
Looks great.
It's like a hairband hairdo.
Yes, it is.
It definitely is a hairband hairdo. Yeah. And it is very 80s.
Yeah, he's obviously most recognizable from the Wrath of Khan movie. But I also remember he had a short-lived TV series, The Phoenix, which I really enjoyed quite a bit. It was kind of like a Starman. He was an alien stranded on Earth trying to find out his destiny or whatever. He didn't remember who he was in that. So it was a pretty cool one-season show, but unfortunately it didn't last. So it was a kind of a blast to see him. I was kind of surprised that he seemed to take the back seat to the other Night 2 character.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
Well, a little bit of trivia. They had wanted Walter Cohen to be one of these knights, and that
he had a heart attack.
Patrick Patrick from the Avengers.
McGowan.
They wanted him to be the other one, and they ended up not being able to work either one. It worked out for Walter,
right?
Because he ends up playing this much better character.
Yeah.
So
can I say something about the other Christopher Neame, who plays Knight 2? Did not like his acting at all.
Okay.
I felt like he was really overacting in this, and that he did pauses as well. And him playing off Sinclair when they were both iffy, I was like, okay, this is like a high school play between the two of them. So, I mean, that was one of my big things with it, is that he was really like, oh, how can you do this?
Yes.
And so it was very melodramatic for me, which was part of my downside of the episode.
So the big point of this is and they give you a call back to, and they do not change Delenn's makeup. In other words, when they do the flashback, they show the original look of what she looked like, which I would have thought you would have just, okay, hey, Mira, in your new look, say there's a hole in your mind. Let's film that and insert it in. But I guess they didn't want to. We get a little bit of payback. There's a hole in your mind, right? And so it appears that what we learned from this, and you guys let me know if I'm filling in too many blanks, I don't think I am, that the Minbari Earth War, it's going really bad. The humans decide to do one last, they've pulled in all the wagons as the Indians are coming. They're going to try to defend Earth, and everything is going to hell in a handbasket. And right at the last minute, our hero, Commander Sinclair, is pulled, and for 24 hours he's gone. When he comes back, the Minbari surrender. And that is one of the mysteries
Mhm.
of the series, is what happened. And JMS says, okay, I'm going to answer that question. Sinclair was picked up. He was gone for 24 hours. He meets with the Minbari and he's sent back. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't tell us anything. And
But
he smiles and goes,
what?
yes, that
Yeah.
is the beauty of a good mystery, right? I
Right.
answer one question, I give you another one.
Yes.
So Lou, I'll start with you. And anything around just the meeting with Minbaris, the line, his feelings of guilt. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's. I just wish I felt it more, because I just didn't feel the emotional context was there that I wanted. But it is interesting that it seems very important that, like, I'm getting cross signals here, because it seems like from Delenn's perspective, it's important that he does remember, or it's important to the Minbari in general. I'm projecting here that for whatever reason that they stopped the war, it's important that he remembers. But then that other Minbari, I think he was blind or whatever, his eyes were kind of weird. He says, if he remembers, then we have to kill him. I'm going like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm a little confused on that whole element of this mystery. So, but I assume maybe there's factions within the Minbari that have different views on the outcome of why this happened. So
yeah, I'll jump you there. Reminder, there's 3 casts in Minbari. There is the warrior caste, the worker caste, and the priest caste, the religious caste.
Right.
And so you would think he's a warrior caste member.
Yeah.
And she's in the priest.
She is the religious caste.
So maybe he's like the Sheol mentor priest or something.
Yes,
like that.
exactly. Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, I just, like, it seems so important, but it just didn't land emotionally for me, fortunately, because like Karen said, like that other actor, he was like really William Shatnering it up kind of, I think. I did like some of the staging of those scenes. They've really remind me again of another Star Trek episode, The Empath, where they're torturing Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and they use like the very minimal black stage with the spotlights motif, which I'm sure for TV production purposes is a nice cost savings device. And I guess they had to do that because they did really show us a couple of long shots within Babylon 5 station itself that we normally don't get, because it's usually pretty tight shots in that. So I'm conflicted about I'm very intrigued about this whole Minbari Sinclair angle of the episode, and it's something that we've wanted explored since the pilot. So I'm conflicted, I guess is where I'm at. I'm interested, but I'm conflicted.
Karen,
right? Yeah, exactly the same. I love seeing that storyline. I'm very interested in that storyline. I love seeing it progress. I want to know where Delenn sits in that. Like you said, it must be some sort of conflict between the people on her planet. She definitely wants him to at least clue in to something. Now that he's lying to her. So is this going to cause more strife? I mean, I mentioned last time that I thought there might be some strife between them, and now there might be even more.
Yeah.
Because he is mistrusting of her, seeing her as part of the Council of the Gray or whatever.
They end up telling you that it's the Gray Council. Did you suspect that before they told you when you saw the circle? Did you go, oh, wait a minute, they've talked about this Gray Council?
Yeah, I was about 110% sure that's what it was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since we were already clued in that she's part of the Gray Council and has something to do with Sinclair. So I wasn't sure one of them was going to be her until they lifted, but I did realize that was the Gray Council. I wasn't sure she was the one that interacted with him then, but it was nice to see that they do actually have that direct connection, that she was the one that he saw. So I think she's wanting to say, we have this connection and there's something between us. And there might be something else going on. I mean, there is something else going on. I just don't know what it is. But I also think it's interesting that she is alone in that. Someone else wants him dead because of it. So is she protecting him from that? Is she that's an interesting development. And it did have a feel of a bottle episode, that it's all in that one place, even if they were outside on the station some of the time. And I think that's a recurring theme in genre shows. There was a Farscape episode like that. There was, I'm I'm distracted by your Roomba right now. There was a Farscape episode like that. There was a Star Trek episode like that. There was even several different incarnations of that on Star Trek. There was one on
There's
the
a
Next
Breaking Bad
Generation.
episode like that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yep.
So yeah, we do get that. So, hey, I'm in my mind, so there's a black, don't see anything but where I'm interacting. And that, it's effective.
Yeah.
And easy for them to do.
Mm-hmm. It'd be cool if your Zumba made like R2D2 beeps or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
I was talking and looking up and I was like, what is, it's a Roomba. Okay.
What were the little bitty robots in Farscape? If I could make it look like that, how cool would that be? Right?
Yeah, it would be cool.
Yeah,
for sure.
So yeah, I think you guys are both on to the right questions as always.
Cool.
There is something going on in the Minbari society. I love that at the end, Delenn goes, he's saying, I know you. And, because he's still remembering that he had seen her during that 24 hours. And it looked like they had possibly tortured him, or maybe that's just from the ship being torn apart. And she's going, yes, you know me because I'm your friend. I'm your friend. And it is, I do love the idea that he stares at her just blankly and goes, no, I don't remember anything. And then we cut to the log and he asks the questions that, to be point on, are repeating the questions that the audience is probably asking. What about this? Why did they want me? Why don't they want me to remember? What's going on? And this is a big mystery on the Minbari. We're just destroying them. They were just going through a one victory after another, just this marching to the sea, almost Sherman's March to the Sea. And then they just went, okay, we give up. And there is a lot of people that have that fake news of, well, they knew that we were going to take care of them, so they ended up surrendering. And other people going, no, make no sense at all. And especially someone who's been in combat. We also establish how they mentioned Sinclair was on the path to be an admiral, and now then he's stuck at this podunk, and this is why. That I don't care how much the court martial cleared you, the bottom line is there's something going on with here and let's get rid of you.
Now, is that a mirror to the gambling part, that they couldn't trust that guy because he was vulnerable? So is that why they can't trust Sinclair, because they think he might be vulnerable?
I think that's a really good thought. I had not thought of that before, but I think that could be.
When you say they, who do you mean? Earth government?
Earth government, the Earth military,
the higher ups in the military.
That whole situation with Sinclair raises a big issue for me, is because everything we've seen so far in this series, if there's any security issue, like those two people that knew the Volon ambassador or had some sort of contact with, they're back on Earth. So why is Sinclair not back on Earth being interrogated, or his mind totally, whatever techniques these guys were using with this neural virtual reality apparatus, why is the Earth government not doing the same thing? Because this is a big moment in Earth history. Like this, they were losing this war. So why are they not trying to find out directly why Sinclair is, why he was so pivotal in the Minbari surrendering? It just seems like a big logic gap to me, especially based on the way the series has portrayed the Earth government so far. So,
well, when you bring that up, I think my assumption is that they've already tried him for this and found him not guilty.
Right.
And maybe there is no way to retry that.
Well, but I'm not talking about a legal thing. I'm talking about just black bag, taking him away and putting him like in Guantanamo Bay kind of, or whatever, and trying to find what's going on. The only thing I can think of is that there's some sort of long game going on here, that they are using him as bait for something else, but I don't know. So that's a big question for me.
I think that's a good theory. And I am almost 80% sure that they answer that question before the end of the first season.
Okay.
on what's going on in that, but that is a great question to think of.
Okay.
I do love there were a couple of things where they talk about why they're not using the telepath. They took time like, well, she's only a 5, so she couldn't do that. She's not trained to do that. I do think one of the nitpicks someone had online is, if everyone's looking for the general, why is Susan just walking with Delenn? Like, oh yeah, everyone's like, shouldn't you be doing something else? You know? I did love it's one of my favorite lines of the episode where Garibaldi says we should have people check outside the station because if someone dumps the body, the gravity of the station would keep it there. And Susan goes, there are days I'm glad I don't have to think the way you do.
Right.
You know? Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions? Like I said, this was a pretty simple thing.
Yeah.
I think our question is, why did the Grey Council pull him? Why did they pull him back? Why are some people saying if he finds out he's got to die? Because, I mean, I don't understand that. Why would just because he knew that? And I agree with you guys. Delenn seems to be almost a veteran podcast host saying to the newbie, Jeffrey Sinclair, so giving him a little like, hey, think about this, hoping he figures it out himself.
Right. She may be prohibited from saying anything, or she doesn't want to be the catalyst for it on the off chance that the warrior cast finds out. Or I'm assuming there's some reason why she's not just meeting with him and telling. And we saw that they had a meeting that he didn't show up for. So what are they meeting about? Just Sinclair and Delenn? Is there something going on? And we did see that in the pilot, the meeting in the garden. But this was an official meeting room type thing.
Yeah.
So, there's a question about that. Why is he meeting with her?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, is she finagling these meetings with him in order to find out more?
Yeah.
Or to poke him a little bit, or to, what is the point of those meetings? Yeah,
again, I'm conflicted with her, because if she's not trying to tip her hand about her appearance with him at the hole in his mind time period, why did she go out and talk him down? Like, she's basically, obviously, anybody around is going to know that there's something going on between these two, because she's got some sort of connection with him, because nobody else, Garibaldi couldn't talk him down. So again, I'm a little conflicted on that. I don't know if that's just a plot convenience, or if we're going to find out that this actually means something more. Well, we know that there's a connection there, but the fact that she did that and this blind Minbari guy didn't say anything about it. So I'm a little conflicted on that. But again, this goes to the clunkiness of the episode, because why would Night 2 go to all this trouble of getting Sinclair into this neural virtual reality? And the first thing he says, oh, by the way, we're in your mind. None of this is real. Like, I'm like, that's a lever. Like, that's your ace up your sleeve. Right. Like, why would you give that away? So anything that happens after that point, Sinclair is not really going to be totally fussed about it, because he knows it's not real. So that was a very important lever that he took away. So I don't know if they did that because they thought maybe the audience wouldn't understand what was going on. I don't know. But obviously television audiences are much more savvy today than even 10 or 15 years ago. But that's, to me, I thought, dude, you just laid all your cards on the table. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
All right. So
can I talk about the newspaper?
Please do.
Yeah, there were some good headlines.
I have all the headlines up.
Good.
And
good.
I'm pretty sure that the people listening already know this, but I thought it was interesting to see. So I'm going to read them. It said, sports, 0G tennis results inside. Is there something living in hyperspace? Home Guard leader convicted. Jacob Lester found guilty in attack on Minbari embassy. Narn Subtle Ragish 3 controversy. EA president promises balanced budget by 2260. Oh no.
Oh, how often have we heard that? Yes.
Yeah. Psycor in election tangle. Did Psycor violate its charter by endorsing vice president? And
illusion.
Again, Yeah, we've
Yes.
gotten hints to that too.
Yeah.
San Diego still considered too radioactive for occupancy. A new study published by Earth Force Nuclear Regulatory Office declares San Diego, struck by the American state's first act of nuclear terrorism over 100 years ago, still uninhabitable for the next 300 years.
Wow.
So I guess no Comic-Con,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Special section, pros and cons of interspecies mating, sorry.
Mm.
That's funny.
Delenn, Jakar is definitely interested in that episode.
Mhm, definitely.
Yeah.
He's reading this paper. Copyright trial continues in Book Zap Flap. Books downloaded directly into brain. Who owns them?
Yes.
Okay. I was interested in that one.
Yeah.
I'd like
Yes.
to know the rest of the story there.
Mhm.
If I could have books directly downloaded to my brain, I would
Yes.
jump right on that. Is there something living in hyperspace? A repeat. So they have that twice on there. New binary star discovered. Okay. And then Inside Universe Today, Babylon 5 edition, which means that there's part of the paper that is just on Babylon 5, which I found interesting, period. And the sections are classified, crossword, editorial/opinion, lotteries, horoscope, and holocomics. So, okay, is there kind of a hologram
I
part
don't know.
of this
Yeah, where they do
newspaper where you it's like a
3D?
lenticular thing where you turn
Are they real?
Paper
Are they
and-
still showing Calvin and Hobbes repeat?
right. Do you open the
You know,
paper and that,
Peanuts is still showing.
it
Mm.
pops up? You know,
Yes.
oh yeah. And the horoscope, really? Do they
Yeah.
still believe in horoscopes?
Yes,
And lotteries. Where are there lotteries on
Mhm.
Babylon 5?
right.
And that's just in the Babylon 5 thing. So that's super interesting.
A lot of cool stuff in there. Yeah.
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 The text of all the articles are instructions for the Babylon 5 equation editor, which looks like genuine documentation after a search and replace has been performed from the product's name to Babylon 5.
Oh, how fun.
Which again, I found they didn't just use lorem ipsum,
Mhm.
whatever,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
that thing. So very cool. And we also got the side story, and it wasn't really a side story, about the doctor, Dr.
Mhm.
Franklin, doing his own research during the war. And instead of being corrupted, he destroys his notes, which is a nice note that we see that about
That,
him.
that is really a nice thing for Franklin. And also, you notice that he opens up about how during the war they tried to use him. And then so, Ambassador, what did you do during the war?
Mhm.
And she says nothing,
That's for a
Right.
story
which
for another
was a
time.
nice little
yeah.
segue. Yeah,
Right.
which then we know that at least one thing, she was at the Battle of the Line.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, what did you do during the war? Oh man, I gotta be somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will tell you, two of the things you just named have significance later on down the series. I will
Oh,
not tell you which two.
two of the
but
headlines.
Two of the headlines actually have significance down the road. So
Right.
that's good. Hey, Karen, let's see. Do we want to do our ratings before we get feedback? We have feedback.
Yeah, ratings first.
Okay, good. All right, Karen, you go first.
You know, I gotta go pretty low on this one,
Okay.
but also I gotta add a little bit because there was so much story development in it with one of the storylines that we're curious about.
Yeah.
So where I would probably give it a 5 on the acting scale, I think I'm going to give it like a 5.5 to 6.
Okay.
5.5 to 6. What notes that were destroyed?
Okay.
I'm going to give it, I don't know how many members are in the Grey Council, but I it looked like a dozen, but I'm going to give it half a Grey Council and give it a 6.
Okay. All right. Very nice. Because I know where we're going, I'm going to be higher than y'all, but I think you guys are right where you should be. I am going to give it 8 out of 10 gambling debts.
Mm.
But yeah, I think this is great. Hey, Karen, we got some feedback, didn't we?
We sure did, a lot of it, which is awesome. So we got one from Holly, and I'll read that right now. Hey, everyone. Sinclair and Dr. House, I think, would get along just fine with Sinclair's "everyone lies" line when he and Garibaldi were talking after questioning Benson. That's funny. I like that.
Yeah.
This isn't a good sign when the communication systems are down. Is this a dream of Sinclair's, or is it actually happening in his mind? I'm wondering if he's not in that chair those two guys were building. And then a beat, looks like my last guess was right. Dirty Pool with the night guys using Mitchell as an illusion to get Sinclair to tell whatever he may have known about the last battle in the Minbari War. Man, these night guys are tough when they come to questioning Sinclair. Glad Sinclair was able to get away from the Knights, but stinks that he's under the effects of whatever they drugged him with. Delenn has nerves of steel facing down Sinclair. Okay, Sinclair and the Knight still stuck inside. What? And I don't think that's true. I think the Knight is just babbling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are we ever going to find out? Delenn's got some backstory, and I can't wait to see how it all shakes out. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin.
Yay. Thank you.
She always has nice comments.
We do. Yes. Holly, thank you so much. She actually reached out to me and said, hey, what's y'all's schedule? So she already has given us feedback
Awesome.
for the next episode. Yeah. And then we have a brand new listener, Alexandra B from Germany, found us and then caught us up. He has sent an email for every episode we have discussed. So I don't know if we want to go through all of them, but I did want to, Karen, why don't we share a little bit of what he gave us and discussed?
Sure. I want to read the beginning of the first email because I think it's cool. I'm so thrilled to have found an ongoing Babylon 5 podcast that is still so close to the beginning. I was too young to catch the show when it first aired. Oh, that makes me feel old.
Yes.
And I started to feel like I'm cursed to find Babylon 5 stuff always only when it was about to end. Getting to join you on this journey as it goes will be all the more exciting. Yay. So thanks, Alexander, for being on this ride with us. It's very cool. And you gave us some questions for some of the other episodes, and that's where I'm going to hit on. One of them ends with, when it comes to the critiques, I find it interesting how the sort of expectations one would have for a typical 90s genre TV show contrasts with how Babylon 5 is structured. Some of Babylon 5 is so modern for its time. Other things like Garibaldi's pervy moments haven't aged well at all. I'm glad to see the positive attitudes overall, though, and the relatively high scores this early in the game make me curious how some later favorites of mine will fare. Good. So there's that. And then he asks, finally, and this is just finally in this email, with regards to the Centauri political drama, I have a question that I'd love to hear speculations on from all of you. Where in history would you place the Centauri? This episode title alludes to a tradition going back to ancient Rome. So could the Centauri be viewed like a late Roman Empire rotten with decadence and their power in decline? Or are they more like a failing European empire at the dawn of the 20th century, like their attire suggests? Or are they best represented in modern day politics, like tired Republicans yearning for better times of the past, after all? Or is there even another parallel that could be drawn?
Lou, I know that's kind of not much notice, but any thoughts on that?
I'm leaning more towards the first one. I think the ancient Rome.
Rome.
Yeah, the Roman, yeah.
They seem to have had their glory days, and that moment has passed for them. And I think, given the behavior of the Centauris that we've met so far, that seems like the best parallel that I can think of off the top of my head. I'd have to give that a lot more thought.
Yeah, they're
Karen?
Definitely more like wine, women, and song.
Yeah.
So I would go along with that as well, that there's a Romans. I mean, they do have their downtimes, but for the most part, they're all about the high life. And that's what I take from that.
So I know that Alexander has seen the whole series, or at least appears. So Alex, hope I can call you Alex. Your thought about the current Grando party here in the US, based on what I know is going to happen in the future of the series, I think that is in many ways a pretty spot on evaluation because of things that I don't want to get into now. I do agree that I think if I don't want to put words in JMS's world, but I would think he was thinking of that decline of the Roman Empire. And I know how much he loved Isaac Asimov and Foundation. Right. That combination of, I think, would show that. But your point about I think both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans here in the modern US, is very accurate, and so really well done. Yeah, like I said, Alex sent us an email for every episode, and going forward, we'll read them as we get with the new episode. So I look forward to hearing what he says. I hope he isn't too disappointed with us not liking this one as much as the other ones. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that Karen, Lou, and I very seldom, I cannot think of a time in our friendship where we have quote unquote hate watch something, unless it's Under the Dome, and that was just fun, right? Because it was but we usually
the end of Castle.
Well, maybe a little. We usually and we try to judge things from the time and look for something good. And this is a fun journey for us. This is an excuse for the three of us to hang together. And so I am glad you're enjoying our discussions. Yeah,
and Alexander, I'll put to you also that you're curious about our ratings. And I think our baseline is it's quality or we wouldn't be talking about it. So there's never going to be a 2. I mean, I know it's a 1 to 10 system, but I don't think we're ever going to go super low. And I think we base our ratings on that episode. So there might be another 6 down the road that you think is worse than the one we gave a 6 to. But for us, it's that self-contained episode gives it a 6.
I know that Christine Perensky, who's did the Game of Thrones podcast with me, isn't on the Next Stop Everywhere podcast. She jokes with us about that Charles and I tend to really, our true scale is like 7 to 10, but I think of a 6 as 60. Which is almost failing, right? Like that is an F. If you get a 59, you're an F. So that's why I tend to. It would have to be very bad for me to give it that.
I think I even gave Jeremiah Crichton like a 5 or a 6.
Yeah,
and I hate that episode. Hate it.
Yeah, because I think I always find something I enjoy. But I think that's a fair question about when you guys rate this. And there are times when I tend to not think about, well, I gave this episode a 7 and I know this one is worse than that, so I should give it. I just kind of do it each time. So
we definitely don't do hate watching. I mean, I stopped doing the very same Game of Thrones podcast that Jesse mentioned because I was getting to the point where the series was not becoming enjoyable for me anymore. So I dropped out, and I never did the Castle one because I knew I knew that was a show that I had to watch at a 50,000 foot level because as soon as you start to dive down a little deeper, that show falls apart for me very quickly. So I just watched it mostly because of the Nathan Fillion charisma. And that's where I left it at. And I didn't want to get any deeper. And I know that you guys, I listened to some of your episodes, you guys were kind of struggling with that at the times as well. So we just, there's so much negativity in the world. We definitely don't want to get out here and add to it. We're here to share the joy of things that we think are worthy of being discussed. So, we won't be doing hate watching episodes here. I mean, if we're hard on certain things, it's because we've seen other shows that are in the same vein that have done it better. And I'm really interested in this show because it seems that the first season is very much, to me, feels very Farscapey at this point. There's a lot of great individual pieces, but it's not always coming together to give like the sum of the parts are greater than the individual pieces. And Farscape was one of those shows. Fringe was another for me. The first season was like individual episodes, but once I dove into the mythology, then that show skyrocketed. So that's what we're all about here. And we all really appreciate the fact that you wrote letters for all these episodes, and we definitely will look forward to hoping that you continue to do that, and we will be discussing any feedback that you feel inclined to give us. So please continue.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to give us feedback, we would really appreciate it. It is, Karen, give them how you can find you, and I'll pull our email address.
Okay, I am at Elevaria, and that's on Twitter and Instagram and all those other places. And you can find me other places from there.
All right. And Lou?
On YouTube, you can find me at Lou's Reviews. On Twitter, you can find me at Lou, L-O-U-W Sytsma, S-Y-T-S-M-A, or at the Stephen King Podcast. And I think that's enough.
Yeah. And the email address for the show is jklb5podcast@gmail.com. I am at Jesse Jackson DFW. You can hear me talk music on Set Listing Bruce. You can hear me and Charles talk Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere. And if you are interested in music history whatsoever, this past week, I released a 2-part episode, 2 parts of my discussion with Mike Appel, who was Bruce Springsteen's first manager. The guy who discovered him, who went with him to meet with John Hammond, the legendary guy, the same guy who signed Bob Dylan, who signed Aretha Franklin for Columbia Records. And Mike Appel was just a lovely interview. He was very candid about the divorce between him and Bruce and the lawsuit, what about Bruce spoke to him, and their current relationship. So if you have any interest, even if you're not a Springsteen fan, but interested in music history, it's a great episode to watch. So, yeah. And the other thing coming up shortly, Lou, Karen, and I, because we love talking so much, we are also doing a series of episodes about Midnight Mass. So look for that soon. We're having a lot of fun talking that series.
That's good.
And we've also talked about doing other limited series when they pop up. So watch for those, please. And it'll be in this same JKL media feed.
Yeah. Yep. And so next week we talk Deathwalker. But for now, thank you, Lou. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, listeners. Go get vaccinated. Go get boosted. Let's all be careful and be kind to each other, because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. And scene.